Hello everyone, welcome and Happy New Year. Today is the first of the year, and for the beginning, we're talking about beginnings as we explore the secret origin of the world, existence, and all things. As we take a look at banned texts in Gnosticism, we took a look at the esoteric systems of Kabbalah, the teachings of Neoplatonism, and what's really interesting is that we're going to be taking a look and seeing how all these different esoteric and hidden systems are saying the same thing. This is information where some of it has been hidden for the public for, different times in history. And not only are we going to be looking at how all this connects, how it says the same thing, but also what it has to do with what we know today in modern physics and how it is verifying this ancient knowledge and how we can understand even more, how we can understand what came before the Big Bang, how we can understand what existence is, where we are, what we are, and why we are here. It's going to be great. So let's take a look at the secret origin of the world as we explore new beginnings here on the first day of the new year. So welcome everyone. It's going to be great. As always, please make sure that you like and subscribe because, hey, this is not just a channel. This is about getting information out there so that we can raise consciousness and create a new earth. And when you like and subscribe, it helps the algorithm spread this around. So please do it. Just takes a second, but it helps out a lot. Also, if you enjoy my work and you want to help this channel grow, if you want to help me create bigger and better videos and more content and reach more people, support over on Patreon. It helps out a lot, and that's the best way to support my work. It's patreon.com/MorgueOfficial, and you get access to all of our members-only videos, and there's a new members-only video every single week. You can also get access to that by becoming a member here on YouTube at tier 2 or higher by hitting the join button right below this video. Also, please be aware, there are a lot of scammers out there. There are people in the comments pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. I don't have a WhatsApp, I don't have a Telegram, so don't fall for that. Also, there are people and groups out there who don't like what I'm doing and don't like what we're doing here in general and are spreading a lot of misinformation and disinformation. So just be on the lookout and don't fall for any of the BS. Here we go, my friends. Right now, here on the first of the new year, first day of the new year, we're taking a look at the secret origins of everything, of existence. And oh, by the way, I want to remind you all as well that I am going to be having a very big announcement here in the new year very soon. So just keep an eye out for that. I will be letting you know when that happens. All right. But that being said, secret origins. So we're taking a look particularly at we take a look at Gnosticism on a lot of my channel, but we're taking a look at Gnosticism, we're taking a look at Kabbalah, and we're taking a look at Neoplatonism. And I'll be showing you how all these systems are pointing towards the same thing, the same underlying truth that has been hidden from humanity for thousands of years in some cases. And this information is extremely important to understanding what we are, where we are, why we are here. And it's very interesting to see how this all connects and lines up. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at, and like I said, remember, we're going to be taking a look at Gnosticism first, but stay with me because I'm going to be showing you how it lines up with Kabbalah, how it lines up with Neoplatonism, and how they all are essentially different ways of expressing the same thing. Not only that, but we're going to be taking a look at what this has to do with the Big Bang and different physicists like David Bohm. It's going to be really good. So the first thing that we are taking a look at here is from the Secret Book of John. The Secret Book of John is one of my favorite Gnostic texts. As always, if you want to read this for yourself, you can read it for free at gnosis.org. That's gnosis.org. It's a fantastic website where you can find almost all of the once banned Gnostic texts found in the Nag Hammadi in 1945. So anyway, the Secret Book of John, like I just said, discovered in 1945, buried near the tombs of ancient Egypt. We thought it was lost forever, but was actually found. The Secret Book of John is all about Jesus appearing to John and telling him truths of existence. So what we're going to look at right here and right now is Jesus Christ describing to John the secret origin of all things. And after that, we're going to be seeing how that connects to Kabbalah and what it says, which is Jewish mysticism, if one isn't familiar with Kabbalah, and then Neoplatonism, which is a philosophical position where, well, you know what, let's just start and you'll see as it goes forward. So this is Christ speaking, and Christ says, I have come to teach you about what is and what was and what will be, in order for you to understand the invisible world and the world that is visible. Raise your head, understand my lessons, and share with any others who have received the Spirit. So right away, the secret book of John, we have Jesus Christ appearing to John saying, hey, John, I'm going to reveal to you the secret essence of everything, the invisible world and the visible world. And I want you to tell as many people as you can to spread this information. And you can see that we're essentially carrying the torch of the spirit of the secret book of John, where what are we trying to do? We're trying to impart this same knowledge. We're trying to spread this message. We're trying to get people to understand this. This is why I always say, second coming of Christ, we're the second coming of Christ. All of us, every single one of us. We want everyone to reach this new phase of existence, this new understanding, this new enlightenment, this new truth about what reality is and what existence is. And that's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to transform ourselves. So it's important to remember that. This is not just like, oh, let's for entertainment. Let's see what this old book says. This is very real and happening right now. This is a mission that was started thousands of years ago. This particular one is expressed in the secret book of John. Now, the first section, right after Christ says that, is called the inexpressible one. So here, you're going to be hearing this a lot, especially when we get to Neoplatonism. So remember this, the being that is responsible, or the thing, or concept, or whatever you want to call it, that is responsible for all existence and all reality is known as the One. The One rules all. Nothing has authority over it. It is the God. It is Father of everyone, Holy One, the invisible one over everything. It is uncontaminated, pure light no eye can bear to look within. The One is the invisible Spirit. It is not right to think of it as a God or as like God. It is more than just God. Very important key things to take away. Remember the name the One, because we're going to be revisiting that in Neoplatonism, where it also discusses the One. The One is the invisible authority over everything, and it is uncontaminated, pure light. So we have to remember as well that it is pure light, and it's not right to think of it as God or like a God. It is more than God. It is the highest thing, the most fundamental thing. There is nothing higher than it. There is nothing more than that. You can't even think of it like a God. It's more than a God. So it's the most fundamental aspect, and it's an invisible. We have to understand this as a mind. It's not a material thing. It's a mind of light. That's what the One is. It is a single mind of light. And the secret book of John continues by saying, nothing is above it. Nothing rules it. Since everything exists within it, it does not exist within everything. It does not exist within anything. Since it is not dependent on anything, it is eternal. This is an important point that I want to raise here. So in the Neogenian system, the system that I support, we talk a lot about the source. And the source is essentially the One. And the source in our system is a singularity of frequency patterns. It is a collection of frequencies, the fundamental frequencies that make up all existence. And these frequencies can be thought of as frequencies of thought, frequencies of light. So in our system, very, very similar. We have, instead of the One, we have the source, and the source is pure light, pure mind that gives rise to all reality, that gives rise to all existence. Now, I really like what it says here. It says, since everything exists within it, it does not exist within anything. And I want to point that out because sometimes people have a hard time understanding this when I say that the source doesn't exist in the material world. And they go, well, what do you mean? How does the source not exist in the material world if it comes from it? And that's the idea. That's essentially what they're trying to express here, is that since everything is within it, it isn't in anything. And another way to understand this is by thinking about a pool of water. Imagine a pool of water as being the one, and imagine everything in it being represented by chunks of ice. The pool isn't inside of the ice. The ice is in the pool and is formed from the water of the pool, but the pool itself as an entity isn't in anything because it is the container of all things. So this is important to understand about the one, mind of divine light, the container of all that is. Now, we haven't even talked about how anything exists, but once things do exist, it exists within it, not outside of it, and it doesn't exist within it. So it doesn't depend on anything. It is eternal, and that's very important for understanding it as the ground of reality, and that it doesn't need anything to exist. It depends only upon itself for its own existence. It says it is absolutely complete, so it doesn't need anything. It is utterly perfect light. Once again, emphasizing that it is light. The one is without boundaries. Nothing exists outside of it to border it. So it's infinite. There's nothing outside. There's no, sometimes people think about like, well, what's outside of space? Or like, what's beyond space? Or the idea here is that when it comes to the one, or the source of all existence, is that it literally is existence. So there's no such thing as outside of it, because it is all that there is. There is no outside. And so there's no border. It says the one cannot be investigated. Nothing exists apart from it to investigate it. The one cannot be measured. Nothing exists external to it to measure it. So you can't, you can't like take a ruler and measure it, because you can't get outside of it to be able to measure. Everything is from within it. The one cannot be seen, for no one can envision it. The one is eternal, for it exists forever. The one is inconceivable, for no one can comprehend it. The one is indescribable, for no one can put any words to it. The one is infinite light, purity, holiness, stainless. So in our system now, we can understand the source. A lot of these systems would say, and we're going to see this a lot, especially in Kabbalah and here in Gnosticism, where they believe that the one can't be known, that there's no way to know anything about it. Well, that's not true in our system. When we talk about the source, we can know the formal aspect of it. That is the structural aspect of it. There are things in existence that we can't know, but that has to do with the experiential side of things. That has to do with the side of things that deal with qualia and experiences. When it comes to the formal or structural aspect of existence, those aspects we can know. We can understand this through exercising our mind and exercising reason and knowing how to rationally understand existence. Why? Well, because this is a rational existence, meaning that it is an existence that operates on rational rules and rational laws, and we are an expression of this, and so we contain the apparatus within us to be able to understand it, because it is what we are. So essentially, we can know ourselves, and this is why constantly it's been told throughout history, know thyself. Not exactly for those reasons, but it applies here. Know thyself. Know thyself. When you know yourself, you will know everything, because you are everything. We are everything. Know yourself and you will know the universe and the gods, because you are the universe and the gods. The one, and again, the one is infinite light. They keep repeating it again and again. The one is infinite light. But you have to remember, if it were true that the one is unknowable in every conceivable way and you can't say anything about it, then really you can't even ascribe any you can't say that it's light. You can't say that, you can't even really say that, all these different attributes. Now, to be fair, they're saying that these things don't really capture its essence. They're just trying to describe it. But you can see the idea here is that when something is totally and completely unknowable, you can't say anything about it with certainty. So to be fair, they are giving a nod to this when they are saying, well, what we're talking about isn't really accurate. So the one is infinite light, purity, holiness, stainless. The one is incomprehensible, perfectly free from corruption. And here's to the case in point where it says right here, not perfect, not blessed, not divine, but superior to such concepts. So they're trying to say, it's not any of these things. It's even better than these things. It's not physical or unphysical. It's neither immense or infinitesimal. It's small. It is impossible to specify in quantity or quality, for it is beyond knowledge. The one is not a being among other beings. It is vastly superior, but it is not, quote unquote, superior. It is outside the realms of being and time, for whatever is within the realms of being was created, and whatever is within the time allotted to it. The one receives nothing from anything. It simply apprehends itself in its own perfect light. And what does it mean by it simply apprehends itself in its own perfect light? Because everything is an emanation from the one, so everything that the one apprehends is the reflection of itself. The one is continuing, and this does have similarities to our system. So in our system, we are all individual minds that form a network mind. So in our system, there is one mind. We often call this the absolute. However, this one mind isn't a singular, undifferentiated unity, but rather a network mind, meaning that every single one of us are individual minds or individual souls that make up this network mind or network soul. So we are all nodes of the cosmic one, if you want to think of it in terms of like a neural network. The one is majestic, the one is measureless, chief of all realms, producing all realms, light that produces light, life producing life, blessedness producing blessedness, knowledge producing knowledge, good producing goodness, mercy producing mercy, generous producing generosity. It does not possess these things. It gives forth light beyond measure, beyond comprehension. What can I say? His realm is eternal, peaceful, silent, resting before everything. He is the head of every realm, sustaining each of them through goodness. All right, so we're going to come back to this. And there's some important stuff that we need to uncover here. But let's remember some of the important aspects here. That reality is all grounded in the one. Everything comes from the one. The one is perfect light. Total, complete, perfect light. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at Kabbalah. Now, Kabbalah is extremely interesting. It's a system of Jewish mysticism, and we're going to see how this relates. And remember, like I said earlier, we're going to see how this ties into physics. And this is very cool because it has to do with the Big Bang. All right, so let's talk about the Big Bang, its relation to Kabbalah, and what it has to do with what we just discussed. Now, this particular article can be read on Kabbalah.com. Pretty easy to remember. So if you want to check it out, go to Kabbalah.com. Now, it says modern science tells us that before the universe existed around 15 billion years ago, there was nothing, and that the universe began in a single point. This point, which had no measurements, contained space, time, and matter within it, then exploded, causing the Big Bang, releasing the energy that eventually became the stars, galaxies, and planets. While science is concerned with the how of the story of creation, Kabbalah focuses on the why. And it is interesting to note that both modern science and Kabbalah's teachings about the steps of creation from thousands of years ago are similar. So, it says the steps of creation. Number one, first there was light. And kind of the theme that you're going to find here is that, what does it say in the beginning of the Bible? It says, God said, let there be light, and there was light. It was the first creation. However, you'll find in these contexts, in these esoteric schools, in these mystery systems, it's not that God created light, it's that God is light. God is light, light is God. Light is a concept that is beyond God. It's kind of like how the book of John said when it's not right to call it God. It's more than a God in terms of how one usually conceptualizes a God. So it says, the great 16th century Kabbalist, Rav Isaac Luria, told the story of creation as follows. So here is the Kabbalistic story of creation, and see how it compares to... Well, you know what? Actually, let me talk about this first, okay? So in Kabbalah, the origin of all things is known as Ein Sof. So, what does Ein Sof mean? Ein Sof means the endless one. Again, really cool. The origin of Gnosticism, what is it? The one. The origin in Kabbalistic thought, what is it? Ein Sof, the endless one. Now, from Ein Sof, there's another concept known as Ein Sof Or, which means the endless light. So, Ein Sof Or is the creative power of Ein Sof, which is the endless light, the eternal light, that gives birth to all existence and all reality. So, you notice the huge similarities here, where in Gnosticism you have the one, a divine mind of perfect light. Here you have Ein Sof, the endless one, and Ein Sof Or, the endless light that gives rise to all existence. So, Isaac Luria says, know that before the emanated were emanated and the creations were created, a simple divine light filled all existence. And there was no space that was empty, and all was filled with that simple and eternal light. Again, really similar to what we just read in the Secret Book of John, that the one is infinite light. It is everywhere. There, went into great detail about how there's nothing outside of it. It is all things. It has no boundaries. Same idea. Regardless of what one's spiritual or religious beliefs are, we cannot deny that there is some sort of energy in the universe that is the source and power of all life. Kabbalah tells us that energy source is called the light, or the endless light, or Ein Sof Or. Before the Big Bang, before our universe and planet, the light was the only thing that existed. So according to Kabbalah, before the Big Bang, there wasn't pure nothingness, or non-existence rather. There was actually pure light. Pure light preceded the Big Bang. And think of the light as an eternal and omnipresent force of energy that contains within it limitless and infinite joy and fulfillment, encapsulating anything and everything positive. The light has been called by many names: God, Goddess, Source, and the Creator. The reason we call it the light in Kabbalah is because just like a single ray of light has within it all the colors of the rainbow, the light has within it every possible type of fulfillment anyone could desire. The light is not the creator itself, rather it is the energy that radiates from the creator, and it only has one desire: to share its essence endlessly and continuously. This endless energy of giving light in Kabbalah is known as the first cause. So you have Ein Sof, which is the endless one, and then Ein Sof Or, which is the endless light, which is this creative force, this creative power. And I like the example of a single ray of light that can produce the myriad spectrum of colors in the visible light spectrum. That's how you can see how an experience of multiplicity can come from the singularity of light. So it says the light created the vessel to receive its essence. The Ari explains further. The simple light wished to create the worlds and emanate the emanated, to shed light on the perfection of its actions and on its names, which is the reason for creation. In order for the process of giving and receiving to occur, two participants are needed. The nature of that light is of endless giving. As such, in order to share its essence, it needed to create something to receive all its beneficence. So the light created what in Kabbalah is called the vessel. And this is going to be really important, by the way. Remember all this? Because after we look at Kabbalah, we're going to look at Neoplatonism. And Neoplatonism is fascinating. It's not something that we've explored yet on my channel, but I think you're going to really like what it has to say and see how it connects to all this. So, and that vessel is us. All souls, past and present, we are one part of that vessel. So this vessel is that which will receive the light, and it is what we all are. Since the vessel itself was created to receive, its inherent desire, therefore, is to receive, and to receive infinitely, just as the light's essence is infinite. There is a corresponding desire to receive that goes with every kind of gift the light has to share. For example, a body of spring water is part of the light, and the desire for a drink of water is part of the vessel. I'm going to read that again because I think it's really important. So, for example here, the body of spring water is part of the light, and the desire to drink the water is part of the vessel. So we have this correspondence here of a giving and receiving. And we're going to see something similar with regard to Neoplatonism. And what this can kind of be interpreted as is the desire for reality to know itself and experience itself. It's sort of creating the two different aspects of itself, right? It's creating the part that wants to give and the part that wants to receive, and within itself it's experiencing the interplay of these aspects which give life meaning. It's these interplay of the forces of giving and receiving, or self and other, that creates the experience that we have here. We then had the infinite cycle of giving and receiving, or cause and effect. Therefore, like the light is called the first cause, the vessel is called the first effect. This led to a beautiful and perfect unity in which the light shared its essence and the vessel received unending, limitless fulfillment. Now, it says the vessel was not happy to just receive, it wanted to create as well. The vessel absorbed so much of the light that it took on the nature of its creator. As such, it was no longer happy just receiving all the time, and it wanted to be a creator too. It wanted to share and be the cause of its own fulfillment. Simply being the receiver caused what in Kabbalah is known as the bread of shame, the shame that comes from receiving that which is not earned. It's like winning the Super Bowl without ever having played a game. Fulfillment cannot be derived from the victory because it wasn't earned. The one desire of the vessel went unfulfilled as there was no one to share with, thus preventing it from experiencing the endless joy it was created by the light to receive. So this is also very interesting, this desire for wanting to create something, looked at as something kind of negative. We see this reflected in the Secret Book of John as well, where what happens is the one starts to generate things. It starts to emanate things. And one of the things that it emanates are beings of light known as eons. And these eons act in perfect harmony. And one of these eons, known as Sophia, wants to create something for herself. And unfortunately, in her act of creation, it ends up creating the material world, which is looked at as an evil prison and darkness. To be more accurate, she ends up creating the demiurge, the demiurgos, or Yaldabaoth, who is a dark being, an evil being that goes on to create the material world and begins trapping souls. But you have another interesting parallel of sort of light or the vessel in this case wanting to create, this act of creation, wanting to create, but it looked at as a negative thing. That's one of the things I don't really like in some of these systems, is where creation or the material world is looked as something as negative or bad, particularly in Gnosticism. certain types of Gnosticism, particularly Sethian Gnosticism. I don't see the material world as bad, and I don't think it should be perceived that way. I think that leads to negative consequences. If we believe that the material world is bad, we're not going to take care of it, and we're going to want to escape it. That's not the point. The point here is that we're creators. We are here to create. We are here to transform. We're here to transform this world, create this world. That's the point. It's a training ground for us to learn how to create and harmonize and synchronize together. And as long as we think, oh, the world is trash, we're never going to clean it up. Now, the world is trash right now, but it's not permanently trash. It's not intrinsically trash. It's not inherently trash. We have the capacity to clean it up, to make it a beautiful place, to build the kingdom of God here on earth, the kingdom of heaven right here on earth. We can do that right here and right now. Our kingdom, our citadel. So, the light. Okay, so this is very interesting. Next, Ari tells us that the light contracted itself into its center, that it contracted itself into one infinite dot. And this is a really interesting part of Kabbalah, is in Kabbalah, the light filled everything. And in order to create, it contracted itself into an infinitely small point. Almost kind of like it needed to make room for something. Not exactly like that, but it's kind of like that, which is an interesting idea here. A lot of creation stories don't have this idea of a contraction, but here in Kabbalah we do. The infinite light contracts itself into a single infinite point. Why? Well, the light wants to give us everything and did not create the vessel for it to experience this lack of fulfillment. So the light, which filled up every possible space of existence and its essence, realized it needed to step back and give the vessel the room to grow, allowing for the removal of the bread of shame. Therefore, as a means of giving the vessel room to grow, it restricted its blessings and contracted into itself, separating itself from the vessel, causing the vessel to shatter. The vessel shattered and caused the Big Bang, creating the universe as we know it. So when the light contracted into itself, separating itself from the vessel shattered, giving birth to the universe as we know it. This is known in Kabbalah as Shivarat HaKelim, or the shattering of the vessels, and it is that moment of restriction that is known as the Big Bang. Kabbalists call it Tzimtzum. A way to understand why the light did this is to look at how a parent teaches their child to walk, even though they know. Well, okay, so I want to move on because I want to get to Neoplatonism, because this is where, some really fascinating stuff starts to come together. But you can see already common themes occurring here. You have the one in Gnosticism, the endless one in Kabbalah. In Gnosticism, the one is infinite light. In Kabbalah, the creative aspect of the endless one is Ein Sof or the endless light, which ends up creating, being the source of all creation in this interplay between this interesting idea of like the giver and the receiver, the light and the vessel. So let's now turn to Neoplatonism. Actually, hold on just a minute. Before we turn to Neoplatonism, I want to read to you some quotes by David Bohm. Why do I want to read to you some quotes by David Bohm? Because some people might think, oh, well, that's all well and good, but isn't this just some bullshit story? Well, David Bohm is considered one of the most influential physicists of the 20th century. He did incredible work in quantum mechanics and theoretical physics. Incredibly intelligent physicist. Now, what was his idea? His idea, well, he had many ideas, but one of his ideas concerning reality is that all matter comes from light, that all matter is actually just transformed light. And this goes along perfectly with what Gnosticism says in the light of the one that creates all things, and in Ein Sof, the endless light of the endless one that is the creative force of existence in Kabbalah. So David Bohm, here's a quote from David Bohm: light can carry information about the entire universe. Light, by interactions of different rays, produce particles and all the diverse structures of matter. So think about that. Light and the interactions of light produces particles and all the structures of matter. They are ripples on this vast ocean of light. So how does David Bohm view reality? David Bohm views reality as an ocean of light. And how does he view matter? As ripples on this ocean of light. So we can understand matter as transformed light, of ripples of light, of light that interacts, forming interference patterns that create transformations that result in what we perceive and experience as matter. And he says this ocean of energy could be thought of as an ocean of light. David Bohm continues by saying all matter is a condensation of light into patterns moving back and forth at average speeds, which are less than the speed of light. In other words, all matter is just light that has been condensed and slowed below light speed. So everything around you, what we think of as matter and material, well, quote by David Bohm, matter is condensed or frozen light. Matter is like light that has been frozen. It's light that has been slow. Light speed is the fastest speed of the universe. Nothing can travel faster than light. Think about that. Nothing can travel faster than light. It is also the singular constant in special relativity. In special relativity, all velocities are relative, except the speed of light. The speed of light is the same for all observers in all reference frames, no matter what. So the speed of light is constant, it is stable, and it is the essence of all things. Light has no mass, light has no extension, there's no length, photons don't have a length, it's not material, it's immaterial. Light is immaterial, and when light slows, it begins to take on the forms of what we understand and experience as matter. So I always say, to try and imagine this, imagine reality as a pool of water and matter like ice floating in the pool. This is a reality of light, and matter is like ice. It is the transformed light, just like how you can have water that transforms into ice and ice that transforms back into matter. We can also see this effect in quantum mechanics when we take a look at the phenomenon of when light is put into conditions that mimic the state of the Big Bang. Let me make sure my microphone's still on here. When light is put, or photons are put in states that mimic the conditions at the Big Bang, guess what happens? Light can be decomposed into a positron and electron pair. In other words, from light, you can produce two material particles, matter and antimatter. And of course, these can annihilate each other once again into nothingness. But from light, you can pull out, think about that. From light, you can pull out matter and antimatter. Matter is transformed light. Matter is condensed or frozen light, says David Bohm. When we come to light, we are coming to the fundamental activity in which existence has its ground. The universe consists of frozen light. We see that in pair production and quantum mechanics when it comes to photons, and we see this being put forth by David Bohm, one of the most influential physicists of the 20th century. There's more I could talk about on this, but I want to get to Neoplatonism. But it's what I want to really emphasize here, that these ideas are grounded in what we can not only observe in science, but what we can rationally deduce and understand about the foundation and ground of existence. And by the way, this is our position in the Neogenian system as well, is that all reality is light. All reality is mind. All reality is math. Well, okay, I want to say all formal aspects of existence are mathematical, to be correct. So we have light, mind, and frequency, and mathematics, all different words for talking about different ways of understanding the fundamental substance of existence. Reality is frequency. Frequency is a mathematical concept, so reality is mathematical. These frequencies are dimensionless, so it is mind, it is mental, it's not physical. And these frequencies are light. These are oscillating wave patterns that are equivalent to light rays when understood in itself from its own perspective, that can be transformed into the various particles in the standard model of physics. So let's take a look at Neoplatonism, because I'm excited to talk about Neoplatonism and I want to make sure that we have time to do it here. So here's Neoplatonism. It's very cool. Once again, in Neoplatonism, and this is at iep.utm.edu. So iep.utm.edu if you want to read this for yourself. So in Neoplatonism, once again, what is the ground of all things, of all existence, of all reality? The One. What is the One? Let's read. The One is utterly transcendent and beyond being. Sound familiar? Plotinus, who was the founder of Neoplatonism, Plotinus declares that the One is alone with itself and ineffable. We heard this before in other terms. It's alone with itself. It means there's nothing else but it. That's all there is it. And this is the idea of, well, here, let's just continue. There's so much I want to talk about. I don't want to get off track here. So the One does not act to produce a cosmos or a spiritual order, but simply generates from itself effortlessly a power which is at once the intellect or mind and the object of contemplation of this intellect. Do you see how cool this is? Look, this is all the same thing. The One is all that is, all that exists, and produces from itself effortlessly. What does it produce? The mind and the object of contemplation of this mind. We just heard about this in Kabbalah, where the One, the endless One, through its creative power of light, creates light and the vessel, or the giver and the receiver. Right here, in the giver and the receiver, we have this duality explained here in terms of the mind and what the mind thinks about. All right? So what the mind and what the mind thinks about, which is the intellect and the object of contemplation of this intellect. If we want to even go further, take a look at this. In the secret book of John, we're going back to Gnosticism. The Father is surrounded. So remember, the Father is the One. I want to point this out before getting to more aspects of Neoplatonism, because this is really cool. The Father, or the One, is surrounded by light. He apprehends himself in that light. He is conscious of his image everywhere around him. His self-aware thought came into being, appearing to him in the effulgence of his light. She stood before him. Her light reflects his light. She is from his image in his light, perfect in power. So it goes on to go on and on about this. But what's important to understand here is that the first emanation of the One, or the Father, is what is known as the Mother. And the Mother is a reflection of the Father's light. So what we can understand this to mean, and if we look even further, it says that from the Mother and the Father come the Son. And how is the Son produced? Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Yes, it says the Father looked into Barbelo, and the Barbelo is the name of the mother. The Father looked into the Mother, and the Mother conceived and bore a spark of light, which was the Son. So what does all this mean, and why is this important? What does it have to do with this? Because you have the One, which is the Father, that emanates the Mother, and from the interaction of the Father and the Mother come the Son. What does this mean? The Father represents mind. The Mother represents thought. And when the mind thinks about its own thought, it produces the Son, which is self-thinking thought. This is why it says when the Father looked at the Mother, the Son was produced, because the Son is thought that thinks about itself. So in the Father, you have mind, and in the Mother, you have thought. When the Father looks at the Mother, thought reflects upon itself, giving birth to self-thinking thought of the Son. So again, same ideas here that we have, like the light and the vessel, the giver and the receiver, and in Neoplatonism, put in more philosophical terms, of intellect and the object of contemplation of this intellect, the mind, and what the mind thinks about, the object of contemplation. This is what the One produces. While Plotinus suggests that the One subsists by thinking itself as itself, the intellect subsists through thinking itself as other, and therefore becomes divided within itself. This act of division within the intellect is the production of being, which is the very principle of expression of discursivity. So this is important. The mind begins to understand parts of itself as other because it has an object of contemplation. And for there to be an object of contemplation, there's an other. You need an othering for there to be something to... If there was no other, there would be nothing to contemplate. This is why the Father generates the Mother, because the Father needs an object for contemplation, which produces the Son, which is self-thinking thought. So you see how in Gnosticism you have it in story form. Here we have it in more philosophical terms, where the intellect is produced and the object of thought for the intellect is seen as other, and this creates division. And this makes total sense, because obviously if you are thinking of things as other, it's a divide, it's a division. It's not just a unit, it's not just a singular. It is a me and then that. For this reason, the intellect stands as Plotinus's sole first principle. At this point, the thinking or contemplation of the intellect is divided up and ordered into thoughts, each of them subsisting in and for themselves as autonomous reflections of the One. So we have now reality being divided into thoughts through the intellect and the othering of this intellect, or dividing up of this intellect, which is all happening within the One. All reflections, all part of the Ones. These are the forms, and out of their inner unity, there arises the soul. So in Gnosticism, we could almost think of these as being the eons. So when we think of eons, in terms of Gnosticism, the One emanates beings of divine light known as eons. But if we take a look at the names of these eons, what are the names of these beings of light or eons? Grace, truth, form, conceptualization, perception, memory, understanding, love, idea, wisdom. So you can see that these are different modes of thought, different modes of the mind. And so, once again, we see this reflected in Neoplatonism, just more in philosophical terms, where in Gnosticism, it's in a story form. So these are the forms, and out of their inner unity, there arises the soul, whose task it is to think these forms discursively and creatively, and to thereby produce or create a concrete living expression of the divine intellect. So you're having the soul using the forms as a creative force. And this makes sense because if you are a soul or a mind, you're using the forms, you're using these aspects. In Gnosticism, like conceptualization, memory, and idea, you're using the forms, you're using these mental programs, you're using these thoughts. The activity of the soul results in the production of numerous individual souls, living actualizations of the possibilities inherent in the forms. So what is just formal and abstract begins taking on a more concrete existence. Here, this is super cool. So when the individual soul reflects upon nature, so nature meaning the physical world, okay? So when the individual soul thinks of the physical world as its own act, the soul is capable of attaining insight or gnosis into the essence of intellect. However, when the soul views nature as something objective and external, that is, as something to be experienced or undergone, while forgetting that the soul itself is the creator of this nature, evil and suffering ensue. This is so nail on the head to what we talk about in the Neogenian system. That when the soul or the mind looks at the physical world and understands that it is the creator of the physical world, then the soul is capable of attaining insight or gnosis or knowledge or enlightenment or higher consciousness. However, when the soul views nature as something that is objective and external, that is something that the soul didn't create, then evil and suffering ensue. And that's exactly what we talk about here and why we're trying to get humanity to reach the next level of consciousness. Because when we realize that everything is a product of our creation and everything is a reflection of ourselves, then all suffering and evil and unnecessary suffering and all the conflicts that we have today will begin to dissolve. Why? Because we'll realize that we're all reflections of one another. And we reach that higher level of consciousness. For me to hurt you would be like for me to hit myself in the hand with a hammer. I wouldn't do that because I know I'd be hurting myself. Well, I'm not going to hurt you and you're not going to hurt me. If we've truly attained hyper-awareness in a real way, if we truly have, I'm not going to hurt you and you're not going to hurt me because we realize that we're different nodes of the same being, of the same network. And so it would be incredibly irrational and absurd for us to have these kinds of conflicts. And this is more or less very similar to what is being said here when it says, when the soul reflects upon the universe or nature as its own act or own creation, it's capable of attaining insight or enlightenment or gnosis or knowledge. However, when it views it as something that's different from itself, when it forgets that itself is the creator of it, evil and suffering ensue. And that's the point. That's the whole idea. When we look at these systems, we all come from the same source. We all come from the same beginning. My beginning is your beginning. Your beginning is my beginning. All of our beginnings are tied together. We are all tied together. And eternal, and to be true, there really is no beginning. We're eternal. The only thing that begins is the material world. The material world has a beginning. But it's kind of like in Kabbalah, you have the endless light. Now the endless light at some point contracts and then shatters the vessel, which is the Big Bang. But the light that preceded all things is eternal. In our system, this light that precedes all things is the source. It is mind. It is a realm of pure mind, a realm of pure frequency patterns. And we are all eternal minds. We are all individual eternal minds that we call zetas, or you can also think of it as the soul if you like, collections of frequency patterns. That's what we are. And we are experiencing each other right here and right now in our diversity. We created this world as a place where we can contemplate each other in our otherness. But the problem is that we have to realize that underneath this otherness is a unity. When we take the otherness as being the true reality, evil and suffering ensues. When we understand that the otherness is ultimately a kind of illusion because underneath everything we're interconnected, then we can start to reach literally the next phase of existence. We were no longer about division and survival, but about unity and thriving as we create a teleocratic planetary civilization for increasing the quality of life for all, a universe reflected in our image, in the truth of existence, a united world. So I have a lot of amazing things that I want to share with you all. I have a big announcement this year. It's going to be an amazing year. And I want to thank each and every one of you. If you're watching it right now or even the replay, thank you for watching this. And for those of you who are here right now, thank you for joining me on New Year's as we begin the first step in 2024. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hey, there's a lot more on my channel. Go check it out. And if you enjoy my work, hey, consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. It'll allow me to create bigger and better videos, more content, reach more people. Really helps. So that's patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. You'll get access to all of our members only videos. And there's a new members only video every single week. Or you can support on YouTube at tier 2 or higher for the same thing by hitting the join button right below this video. And as always, remember, hey, this isn't church, so don't feel obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. There are plenty of free ways you can support my work by liking and subscribing and sharing and things like that. That being said, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support. I appreciate it very much. It helps out a lot. Thank you so much to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Enki, Nusalina, Paul Rogers, Eric Fire, Massam, Christopher Smith, and everyone else. And I do have some names I need to add to this, so I'll be doing that soon. Thank you very much.